All right, let's head over to the Zoom line where we've got Stacy Schaffer on the line with us. 318 Project. Human trafficking is the month of January. It's an awareness month. That was a weird sentence I just jumbled together. January is Human Trafficking Month. Stacy
Yep.
Schaffer is here. We're going to also talk about her summit coming up in May.
Mhm.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm not too bad. 318 Project, Human Trafficking Awareness Month coming in. It's January here as we're doing the interview. Let's talk a little bit about 318 Project. Let's give some people some awareness about what to look for.
Mhm.
What is human trafficking? Let's start there. Um,
Okay,
Now,
for sure.
when I was kind of in college and my younger years, it wasn't called human trafficking. I think it was like sex workers and sex trafficking, and that was the
Mhm.
general kind of broad brush term they used. Well, now we've gotten to the point to where that's not even a thing. We're getting into slavery, we're getting into
Yeah.
child trafficking, so it's gotten so much more broader than what I think people realize. So human trafficking, let's just define that and
Yeah.
kind of do that a little bit.
hmm For sure. So, human trafficking at its basic form is selling someone for a good or service. And this can be in different ways. To your point, a lot of people, when they think human trafficking, they just think sex trafficking. And the fact that that's not the only type of trafficking out there. In fact, there's labor trafficking, and then you could get into child soldiers, organ trafficking, etc. But the most common is between that sex and labor trafficking. People can be trafficked for both, but typically it's one or the other.
318 Project, let's talk about the genesis, the foundation, and how you've got
Yeah,
linked up with the awareness and the cause.
for sure. So in 2006, I was one of those individuals just really interested in history. And at that time, I was in college and I had a professor say to us, if you go to this guest speaker, you can get extra credit. And being the student I was, I said, let's do this, get the extra credit. And this speaker was talking about human trafficking, also known as modern day slavery. So at that point, I would say I was probably a little naive in realizing that slavery still existed as much as it did today. In fact, it exists more than it did during the transatlantic slave trade. So finding that out really sparked something inside of me to want to learn more. And learning more eventually took me over to Guatemala. And while I was in Guatemala, I experienced my first case of human trafficking with a little girl named Anna. She was 8 years old at the time. And how trafficking happens in underdeveloped countries isn't necessarily how we see it here locally in the United States or North Dakota specifically. But what had happened is she was actually taken from a playground from El Salvador and taken to a brothel in Guatemala where she was repeatedly sexually abused over and over again. Now, regardless of who you are or what age you are, this is going to be a traumatic event. And it was for Anna, but fortunately, the group I was working with at the time, we were able to intervene and provide her with some services. And she went on to live a relatively normal life. And Anna's really my why and inspiration for launching 318 Project in 2015. So that's kind of the story of what led me to where I guess I'm at today.
I'd like to share my journey a little bit too, and I'll make it pretty brief because it kind of touches on a lot of the similar paths that your 318 project went on as far as covering human trafficking with the crude life. When I was a Ute back in the young days of high school and in college, I worked at a trucking company where I would wash semis. So I'd be outside and I'd be scrubbing them and doing all this. It was a great job, actually. I could have my shirt off and get a tan, made great money, got
Mhm.
to listen to the tunes. It was great. And I got to talk to a lot of the truckers, of course, because they were waiting for their vehicle to get washed. And I learned a term called lot lizard. Okay, it's
Mhm.
otherwise known as a hooker, basically, I guess.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
a lot lizard would be a sex worker that's specific to
Mhm.
a trucker or a truck stop or kind of that lifestyle, if you will. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I was pretty young under the age of, 20 learning this, real life things. And so I was always kind of, and got to remember, this is before the internet. So a lot of this,
Hmm.
this is before TikTok, where you go on
Yeah.
your front page and it's all just sex after sex after sex. This was not a thing. Like you had to go into a back room and pay somebody to get exposure to many pornography
Yeah.
like things. So back when, I don't know, it was about 7, 8 years ago, I suppose it was. I think I was at a Bakken event. It was either
Hmm.
the Permian or the Bakken. It was an oil field. Okay, it was one of the oil fields,
Yeah.
and we interviewed truckers against trafficking, and
Yeah.
it was a member of that. And I basically reached out because of my background with the washing trucks. I thought, oh, I could at least talk to trucks. Had no idea
Yeah.
about the trafficking side because I was very naive. Well, here I had a child in junior high. So as we
Hmm.
start talking about how they are targeting junior high children now through social media, through Fortnite, through video games, through other reasons to groom the children. And I had just the slap in the face of reality of what's going on in the world of human trafficking. So if anybody out there is listening, wondering why the Crude Life has had so many interviews with professionals on human trafficking, it's because it's a real issue. It's not getting
Yeah.
worse. As the technology grows, it's actually increasing because of these reasons. Um, let's talk a little bit about some of the youth that's happening here. I mentioned that as young as 10, 11, 12 years old, they're being groomed via social media, via Fortnite and video games, and just any way
Hmm.
through the technology that they can reach out to these children. And the parents have absolutely no idea in so many cases. Talk to me about this
Yeah.
real life problem, because when I heard it like seven
For
years
sure.
ago, I mean, my heart dropped. My heart just dropped.
Right. Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for covering the topic. A lot of people don't even like to have conversations about human trafficking because, well, first off, I think we want to believe it doesn't exist, that it's a problem that's in a different country versus a problem that's here. But then also it's scary to think that could that impact my family, my child, etc. So from a children aspect, a lot of people, when they think human trafficking, they're like, it's that person that drives the white van and snatches the kid off the street, right? Again, that's not what we see here. What we typically see is what you were explaining, social media, gaming, those different types of platforms where you have that trafficker that has conversations with that youth and, finds out their vulnerabilities, tells them, hey, I can make your life better. I'm here for you. You don't need that family member, whatever the issue is. Maybe there's an issue at home. They will prey on people's vulnerabilities. And based off those vulnerabilities, that's how these trafficking situations end up happening. So social media definitely does play a big role in it. So what I always tell people, whether you have kids, grandkids, or just an aunt or uncle that want to be more involved in your niece and nephew's lives, is educate them on how to use social media in a safe and efficient way, because there are a lot of good things to social media, but there's a lot of harms to it as well.
The former mayor of Midland, Texas, he's also a pastor, and his name is
Mhm.
Patrick Payton. And he had interviewed a number of human trafficking because that was a big cause of his I don't know,
Mhm.
mayoral. Uh,
Yeah.
when he was in office, I mean, I can't,
Yeah.
gubernatorial keeps sticking in my head. I can't get out of the
Right.
word gubernatorial, but for when he was mayor. And,
Mhm.
some of the stories, and him and I had talked a number of times about it, but one of the stories that really jarred me was two stories. Number one was there was family members selling their own children, which was a real thing
Mhm.
because of economic hardships and et cetera. But the story about grooming online or Snapchat was
Hmm.
when, and because Snapchat was very popular for a while. If anybody's wondering why I said Snapchat, because there's a statistic. That's why, folks. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, honestly, well, Snapchat was so
Yeah.
much easier for a while than the other ones because you couldn't track it and trace it, and
Oh,
it was
yeah,
so
for sure.
secretive.
Hmm.
But so often, people, what the parents don't understand is that these human traffickers and predators, they'll wait 5 years. They will wait.
Hmm.
That child is just a number to them. And once they reach a certain point, like you said, they'll say, listen, hey, you don't need to put up with that. Come meet me at the Dairy Queen and let's talk about it.
Hmm.
That's all it takes is
Right.
one time, one
Right.
fight with your parents. I mean, when I thought about that, like
Yeah.
how many fights did I get with my parents, and how many people called me crying because they just got in a fight with their parent. And I mean, that's all it takes
Yeah.
is just one time. And so that's when it got really real to me, was that
Hmm.
families were actually selling their own children. And all it took was
For
that
sure.
just one time, that one bad day
Right.
that you had, just an interaction. What are some warning
Yeah.
signs?
Hmm. First, you also bring up a good point.
Yeah.
What we see in a lot of parts of the United States is the most common type of way that people are trafficked is through that familial trafficking. So it's a family member who is the trafficker. So I think it's important to understand that too, because the two common cases I see is either a family member that's the trafficker or someone is being recruited online. Obviously, there's other means as well, but those are the two common ones that I see. But some warning signs. So let's say you have, this individual who is super outgoing, super friendly. Maybe they have a lot of friends. They're doing well in school, etc. All of a sudden you notice that they're in a relationship with somebody noticeably older, right? And sometimes what we say, maybe you have a ninth grader that's dating somebody in their 20s, right? Well, there's already problems with this relationship. But within that relationship, you notice that that person is showering the individual with gifts, affection, attention, things that this person typically didn't possess on their own. And slowly this individual, the boyfriend or girlfriend, right? Because traffickers can be male or female, so can victims. But they start to isolate them away from their friends and family. And so all of a sudden, this person who was happy, had a lot of things going for them, suddenly appears anxious, depressed. They have bruises on their body in different stages of healing. They have items that they typically couldn't afford. To us, those are red flags. Let's say you go to a gas station. And again, you notice somebody with somebody that's quite a bit older, and you can tell that they feel maybe uncomfortable. They don't want to be there. The person they're with is communicating for them. They're not allowed to talk. This individual is watching them where they go, what they do. To us, those are red flags, right? It doesn't always mean it's human trafficking, but there could be something there. So what we tell people in situations like this, we don't want you to intervene. Rather, write down everything you see. Is there a birthmark, a tattoo? What car do they get into? What's the color, the license plate, and what direction do they drive? Those are all things then that you can report to local law enforcement. So those are just some common tips. And what we tell people is you might see one red flag, you might see multiple, you might even see things that I didn't list here today, right? But if in your gut something tells you it's off, it's probably off. So we want you to act on that and make that phone call.
I guess I didn't realize the family trafficking portion had become so common.
Mhm.
I maybe it was explained to me at the time. I assumed it was maybe a lower part of the percentage, but just listening to you,
Mhm.
it seems like it's one of the top two ways. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
let's talk about some warning signs within the family members, and how the heck
Yeah.
would you even? I mean, let's say you suspect your uncle. I mean, what the heck? It's going to ruin Thanksgiving, first of all. But I mean, how do you even
Oh,
bring it
yeah.
up? How would you even bring that up? And to who?
Yep. And that's why we always say that type of case adds another layer of complication to this, right? Because you are taught that you should trust your family members, that you should respect your family members. And then when all of a sudden something like this, it happens to you, and usually they're going to tell you, don't tell anybody, they're not going to believe you anyway. That's very challenging.
Not
For
only that, but
instance,
but think
yeah,
about how many people don't want to believe it. Okay,
yeah,
there's that layer because there's
yeah,
denial is a real thing. It is a river in Egypt and it exists in
yeah,
humans. And the
yeah.
other part is there's going to be people that would want to suppress it because they wouldn't want their family shamed.
Yes, yes. Yep, for sure. And so in those situations, it's usually later on in life where we find out about the situation with some
Yeah.
of our clients. And then, of course, when you talk about youth, usually that's going to be something where you have to train social services, medical personnel to notice some of those types. They're going to be in law enforcement. They're going to be the ones to notice it more, as well as even teachers. So they need those tools of how do I identify that something seems a little strange within this family?
So what would the red flags be in the family then? Would it be, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously the different, all of a sudden maybe there's a new
Yes.
person showing up that's age
Yep.
inappropriate and new friends that seem shady, but are there any like
Yes.
things like that?
Yes, for sure. Like those are all good examples. I'll give one case example. So there was a mom and dad that separated. Now, again, like I just like to preface, anybody can be a victim and anyone can be a trafficker. But in this particular case, it was the dad. So on the weekends that his daughter, who was a middle schooler, went to stay with him, he started to sell her to his friends for sex acts, saw how much money he could make, and started selling her online. In school, she started to exhibit really bad behavior, right? She was kind of acting out. She wasn't this happy-go-lucky girl that she was before. And instead of, it was a missed opportunity because she was deemed this bad kid. Find out later, after she committed a crime, that here she was actually being trafficked by her dad. So I use this example of sometimes when people are acting out, there's a reason behind it. And we need to ask ourselves, what has changed in their home life, right? Was there a separation? Did mom or dad get a new boyfriend or girlfriend? Is there something within that relationship that could be off? These are things we need to question, right? And sometimes we don't. We go to the opinion of it's just a bad kid rather than, well, what maybe changed in their home life that could have altered the way they're acting now? So that's, I guess that would be some of the stuff I often tell people is usually there's something going on. So, and the red flags I said earlier, right? When you have this kid that goes from being a really great kid to all of a sudden, a lot of things are changing in their life. They're isolated. Their family might be taking them out of town every weekend, right? Like we had a case, mom got a new boyfriend, and this was in Bismarck. And this boyfriend on the weekends would take her daughters during the height of the oil boom over to the Williston area and sell them for sex acts, right? Again, they come back to school on Monday, exhibiting bad behavior Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, they finally seemed a little bit more calm. Thursday, the cycle starts to start again because Friday, they know what's going to happen when they get out of school. So again, just asking those questions of, what maybe changed in someone's life, or why are you going out of town all the time? Or tell me more about that. Just asking more probing questions can be helpful.
I can't even imagine some of
I know
these
it's heavy.
situations.
It's
It is.
definitely heavy.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Hmm.
And like the story in Texas that jarred me, well, it was a mother that was selling the daughter. And so
Hmm.
here, you're talking about the father and trying to
Yep.
go out of your way, go try and say, I'm not stereotyping here. And I'm thinking, boy, I heard the exact opposite story. And it's
Yeah.
true. It's just it's parents, it's aunts, it's uncles, it's a
Yeah.
reality. And again, I don't know if it's just an economic downturn or if it's something along
That's
those
part of it.
lines. Is most of the times
Yep.
is it economics?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So anytime where you see an increase in poverty, you definitely see more of that type of trafficking familial happening where you're essentially born into it, right? So we've seen cases where mom sold their daughter or son so that they could get groceries or to the fuel man, right? And then that individual has a child, and then the cycle continues because you think that that is normalized, right? Like this is what we do. So we see definitely a lot of that generational type of trafficking that happens within a family where you're just simply born into it too.
Stereotypes would have us believe that Native Americans and Asians are the ones who are primarily trafficked,
Mhm,
probably Hispanics next.
mhm,
Is that the true stereotype out in the Bakken as well, or are you seeing more Caucasians like they are down in Texas?
mhm. I would say for North Dakota, there is a disproportionate amount of cases that we have dealing specifically with the Native American community. So the way our stats are, it definitely is higher. Now, I have seen all ethnic groups represented when it comes to human trafficking, but we do definitely have some disproportionate numbers
Yeah, and
when it
that
comes to that.
that's concerning with the Native American population as well, because it just seems like I don't know what can be done, what for
Mhm.
education or awareness or what it is. It's sad because that was the shock that I saw in North Dakota, and then like I said, when I went down to Texas, I was surprised at the number of Caucasians actually down there,
Mhm.
and so uh,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For
sorry.
sure.
May 20th and the 21st in Bismarck is the 31/8 Project Bakken Human Trafficking Summit. Talk to me
Yep.
a little bit about that and give yourself
Yes.
an overview. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
For sure. So this will be our fifth one, and it is our first year in Bismarck. So it does rotate every year from city to city in Western North Dakota. And this year we're pretty excited. I say this every year. I feel like we amp things up a level every year. So I'm super excited about the content we're covering this year. Um, we talk a lot about human trafficking and we hear a lot about it from female victims of human trafficking, but we don't always get the male perspective. And this year we are going to have some male survivors of human trafficking. And I think it's going to be great to understand that side too, because there's a national movement that's saying, oftentimes when we talk about human trafficking, we say women and children, when we should be saying male, women, boys, and girls. And I agree. So I'm excited to have that. We're going to have speakers talking about like health implications associated with human trafficking. How does this impact the Native American community? We're going to hear from labor trafficking survivors, as well as some case studies surrounding the topic of human trafficking as well. So I would say if you are a person that wants to dive deeper into this topic, or maybe you need to get more continuing education credit for your job, this is going to be a great opportunity to get that.
I have never heard of a male being on the sex trafficking end. I've heard of
Mhm.
boys, I've heard of girls,
Yes.
and I've heard of women, but I've
Yeah.
never heard of men. And of course, I'm not discounting it at all, but in
Hmm.
all the years that
Yep.
I've done the interviews, you are exactly right. It's always
Hmm.
women and children, or women, boys,
Hmm.
and girls. I've never heard adult men. Is
Yep.
that a thing? Like,
Well, it is, but to be fair, the individuals we're hearing from, they were trafficked when they were children.
sure.
One individual was from his mom, and again, born into it, right? Because his mom was also abused and trafficked by her father. So that was like a cycle that continued. So to be fair, there's cases did happen while they were children, and now they are adults. Now, on the labor trafficking side, I will say a lot of our cases, it is males that are
Mhm.
adults. So it kind of just depends a little bit.
No, it's a good awareness exercise, if nothing else, just to, get your
Mhm.
mind to stopping when it should keep going, I guess is
Right.
kind of the way I guess those is the moral of it for me there. But uh and then the other question I had is how can people attend? And it's a 2-day event, right?
Yes, it is a 2-day event, and we have early bird tickets on sale right now till January 31st, and then the price will go up at the end of the month. So if you are on the fence about attending, now would be the time to get your registration in, and you can do that by visiting 318project.org.
And who attends this? You said that there was
Yes.
some sort of accreditation. So
Yep.
is that like a human resources thing or?
Yeah, so we will have CEUs for counseling, social work, addiction counseling, nursing, attorneys, post credit for law enforcement, and then there's general certificates as well, because some people don't necessarily need the continuing education, but they still want to get certification of completion. So we still offer that as well.
I didn't realize there was classes like this that would go along with it for counseling and some other areas
Mhm.
too. But wow. What is the one thing you want people to, remember when it comes to human trafficking and it is Awareness Month, so if somebody's
Mhm.
watching this or listening, what's the one thing you always want people to walk away from knowing?
Yes, that it really only takes one voice to make a difference when it comes to human trafficking. So if you suspect something or you see something that seems off, use that gut feeling and report it. Because again, it's that one voice, right? A third of cases are reported by the general public. So really the general public, you are the eyes and ears of the community. And so really it's part of our job to make sure that we're seeing what's around us and making sure we report things if it seems unusual. So I would just encourage people to, again, do that, but also continue to educate yourself and have these conversations. It can be uncomfortable, but the more people that have education, the better off we're going to be in preventing this crime.
What kind of support do you get for this? Are you looking for sponsors? Do you have sponsors?
Yes, we are looking for sponsors right now. Well, as an organization, we're always looking for sponsors, but for the Bakken Human Trafficking Summit specifically, yes, we do have sponsorship opportunities. And then we also have group ticketing prices as well, where you can get a discount. So if you know you're bringing 5 people or 10 people, there are discounted breaks for that. But then again, also, if you want to be more involved and be a sponsor at some level, we are also looking for that as well, too.
Do you have sponsors for the main 31.8 project as well that are separate than the Bakken
Yes, we have
sponsorship? Yeah.
yep, we have corporate sponsors as
Okay.
well. So that's another way people can get involved on a larger scale. And when you're a corporate sponsor, you're involved in all of our events basically in some capacity.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from corporations and companies and state agencies and everything else? When 20 minutes ago in the interview, you mentioned people don't like talking about these types of things, and I agree with you. It's easier to look the other way, but
Right.
somebody's got to do what you're
Yep,
doing. And so,
for sure.
what kind of reaction do you get from companies when when you pitch them to, hey, let's support
Yes,
me so I can go and freak people out? Like,
right. Yes, and it's a good point. It is a mixed response. Some people are really receptive, where some people are, you know, does this really happen here? Or are you saying that there's a problem that doesn't really exist? So sometimes we get some pushback there. And you know what? I use that as an educational opportunity. Like, let's talk about really what is happening here, right? And once we do that and we give some of our case examples, I think people begin to realize, wow, this really is happening here. But I think there is sometimes that hesitancy. And then also, like, do I tie my name with this human trafficking movement? And absolutely, right? Like, you want to be on the end that's preventing it. Like, that's where we want to see you. We don't want to see you on a different end of it.
well, that's a good point. Let's say you're like an oil and gas company, for example, because a lot of the human trafficking accelerates when there's a lot of oil and gas activity and other industries too, but specifically because we're talking about the Bakken that exists. But at the same time, they probably don't want their name associated with they don't want two to become two. They're one and one to equal two and guilty by
Mhm.
association and everything else that goes along with it. Um, do people underwrite or do they do like angel donation type things? Because what you're offering goes kind of above and beyond party planning. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
not really a party planning event where we're gonna, have a few cocktails and network and post some pictures on social media. You might do that too, but there's also an
Yeah.
agenda here and a workshop and a number of different things. And what you're doing is actually extremely important to the lifeblood
Mm-hmm.
of the oil and gas industry. And like I said, a lot of oil and gas companies might not necessarily want their name advertised with it, but
Mm-hmm.
you know as well as I do, they're more than willing to underwrite certain things. Do you do that?
Yeah.
Does anything like that exist?
People can definitely do that. On occasion, we will get some sponsors that, we don't know necessarily who they are. It's given anonymously. But I would say most of the groups we've worked with have been really receptive of, wanting to show that they're supporting at the same time. So I think we've actually had pretty good success when it comes to that. And then a lot of times these groups send some of their own employees as well, which I think is also good. Because if you sponsor, it's like this is an opportunity for your employees to learn as well.
Is this connecting on the mental health level at all with people? Because right now
Mhm.
we're entering a world where mental health awareness is becoming regular conversation. I used to
Mhm.
joke because when I grew up, your religion, your income, and your sexuality were three things that you never shared with anybody. And nowadays,
Mhm.
that's what everybody leads with. And if you
Yeah.
don't like mirror them, they get mad. And it's like, okay, I'm sorry, man. I'm a Catholic, spoon-fed fear and guilt my whole life here. Come on now. So I was a little
Mhm.
little different. That's my joke. As a former altar boy,
Yeah.
I was a former altar
Yeah,
boy
for
and
sure.
Sunday school
Yeah.
teacher. But anyway, yeah, I forgot the question on that. There I was going. Sorry about that.
Oh, no,
Um,
no, it's all good. Yeah.
yeah, so as we kind of wrap up a little bit here, May 20th and 21st, I had the mental health question for you
Oh,
and that
yes.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where I was going with it.
Yes.
Talk to me about the mental health connection because I actually believe that might be the best way
Mhm.
to connect with the audience in today's day and age. Like this speakers that you're having at the Bakken conference, they're adults now,
Yeah.
but when they were trafficked is when they were children. I mean, there's a mental health story right there that can
Yeah.
absolutely connect with people. So talk to me a little bit about
Oh,
the
for
mental health
sure.
connection.
For
Yeah.
sure. So, when you talk about trauma bonding, Stockholm syndrome, all of those different facets, right? Like that plays a big role for survivors of human trafficking. You have to think traffickers have a way of rewiring someone's brain and then to try to rewire it back, right? That doesn't just happen. So part of what we're doing at the Bakken Summit this year is we're actually going to have a session talking about that. Like, what does it look like when someone's trafficked? How does that impact somebody's mental health, as well, both mentally, psychologically, physically, all of these different elements. We're going to be really touching on that more because it's complicated, right? People don't understand how our brain can be rewired, right? But that's what trauma bonding is. And that's what traffickers do. And that's why victims don't just leave, right? Because they have that bond to that trafficker. So it's definitely an important topic that ties into this subject.
All right. Anything we left out? Anything we want to reiterate here for the Bakken? It's a fifth annual, May
Fifth
20th through
annual.
yeah, annual, be next year.
Yes.
Fifth annual Bakken Human Trafficking Summit. Is that what it's called? All right.
Yep, you got it.
May 20th through the 21st, 318 project. So, yeah, anything that we left out or anything you want to reiterate?
No, I think that's great. If people have more questions or they just want to become more informed, I definitely would push them to check out our website as well as our different social media channels.
Well, thank you,
Well, thank you.
Stacy Schaffer there. I had a little bit of an echo there, came out of nowhere, but all right. Well, we'll be talking to you down the line. Okay. Thank you much. Oh, how can people
Perfect.
get in touch with you if they want to sponsor it, that kind
Yes,
of thing?
for sure. You can definitely visit our website, yeah, at 318project.org, or you can reach out to us. Our number is 701-557-3750, or you can email us as well, and that's info@318project.org.
Thank you very much, Stacy.
Perfect. Thank
Bet
you.
have a great one.